I'd like to welcome you all to the closing session of what has been a marvellous, thought-provoking 3 days, and 3 days of wonderful collaboration and sharing of ideas and questioning of ideas and responding to those questions in great form. So I thank you for continuing to stay with us through to the end with this closing session, which is an important session because it's a session in which we're going to recognise some real stalwarts of the Australian and indeed the world financial academic discipline. So my job is a fairly simple one. It's really just as traffic warden to introduce people and see that we can get through. And I get through in 2 hours. I think Bala's allowed. And I said, Bala, it's a Friday night, remember, so we've got to get through in the 2 hours. So we don't want to go over time. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time speaking myself, but just to briefly let you know as to the agenda. We've got really 5 things to do in this session. One is we're privileged to have the college provost, Simon Evans, attend tonight and close the conference, and so he'll be speaking shortly. We will also have some closing remarks by Bala. Then we're going to present some lifetime achievement awards to some real stalwarts of the discipline and the industry. And that will be followed by a short reflection by the President of the Melbourne Society of the CFA before we announce the winners of the Best Paper Awards, both for the conference proper and for the PhD symposium that has formed a significant part of our 3 days. So, so that's the agenda. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Professor Simon Evans, who is the Provost of the College of Art, Social Science and Commerce here at La Trobe. So without further ado, Simon, over to you.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you for the introduction. I'm delighted to be joining the 11th Financial Markets and Corporate Governance Conference this evening, in particular this closing session and the presentation of awards. It's a great pleasure to be here, even if the remote format means we don't have the conviviality of a final drink session. I sense we have the spirit of that in our own homes and offices as we go into this session. First, however, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands from which those of us who are in Australia are joining the session tonight. In my case, acknowledging that I'm speaking from the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay tribute to their elders, past and present, and pay tribute to all Indigenous peoples who might be participating in tonight's session. Second, I want to pay a public tribute to my colleague, Professor Balasingham Balachandran, who has led the organisation of this conference over a number of years, and I've already heard in the run-up to the beginning of the session this evening from others involved about the energy that he has brought to the conference again this year, and the essential quality of drive and passion that has led to the tremendous success of the conference, about which I'll say a bit more in a moment. But I also want to pay tribute to the organising committee drawn from a number, I might count 9 or 10 universities in Australia and New Zealand, and thank all of those participating on that organising group and their universities for their support in this event. The scale of the conference is a tribute to their hard work. I believe 42 PhD students and more than 250 academics from 28 countries presented research over the last several days. I'm grateful to all of them, our partner universities and our sponsors. And a bit later, I'll say a little more about what it's taken all of those participating to get to this point, given the well-known situation in which we're all living at the moment. The third thing I wanted to note was the diversity of speakers and topics at this conference. In Australia, in recent weeks, we have seen yet again the devastating impact on women of a lack of gender diversity and of the absence of a culture of respect and equality in some of our political parties and institutions. It's not just in politics, no sector is immune. The Australian Human Rights Commission calls attention to the fact that the average superannuation payout for women is a third of the payout for men, $37,000 compared with $110,000, much more than the wage gap of 16%. Women make up less than 30% of the boards of the ASX All Ordinaries companies. 79 boards on the All Ords still have no women. Diversity therefore remains a core issue for financial markets and corporate governance, the themes of the conference. So I was particularly interested to see in the program papers on the impact of board gender diversity, including on ethical leadership and COVID-19 corporate response to employee welfare, and on corporate leadership and beliefs about gender roles. I hope these themes continue to grow in salience and visibility in this forum, alongside the multitude of other key topics. Fourth, I want to call out for particular attention the fact that this event yet again manifests another kind of important diversity, again linking the academy with industry, in particular through the industry keynotes on the future of super funds, sustainable investment, and regulators like ASIC. Collaboration between the academy and industry, government and regulators is key to the kind of research that La Trobe is committed to, tackling the big questions that are not the isolated province of academics, but really engage with the society in which we live. And I know that animates so much of the research presented here at the conference by scholars from universities right around the world. Notwithstanding the remote format, I hope there were still plenty of opportunities for networking across sectors, and that can underpin future productive collaborations. The remote format again calls explicit attention to the fact that this conference takes place during a global pandemic, and one that has exacted a huge human toll on colleagues around the world. We've been exceptionally fortunate here in Australia and in New Zealand, but I observe there are participants from countries that have suffered and continue to suffer devastating individual, social and economic impacts. I offer my most sincere condolences to those who have suffered personal losses. But even continuing with research in this environment has been profoundly difficult for many. And I pay tribute to the tenacity and grit of all those who managed to complete and submit papers in this environment, especially the PhD students and early career researchers on whose shoulders so much fell during the pandemic, and in many cases the shift to online teaching and online research. There's another dimension of the pandemic that I wanted to note, and that is its resonance with a couple of the conference themes. And perhaps next year we'll have papers that respond to topics such as corporate social responsibility and vaccine availability in less developed countries, a topic that's been in the news today as once again the discussion of Australia pushing for some of its AstraZeneca doses being made available to Papua New Guinea, which is suffering so badly at the moment. Or how financing the global rollouts of unproven and novel technologies in the face of global crises, the finance and governance of the proposed national strategic pandemic preparedness vaccine manufacturing facilities, how assets are priced under profound uncertainty and unknowable political pressure to deliver at cost. And no doubt much more that will occur to you who are actually experts in the field, rather than amateurs like me who are fuming about what appears to be of current interest to the untutored readers of the newspapers rather than the journals. So congratulations once again to everyone who completed research during the last year and presented it here over the last few days. That alone is a tremendous achievement in the face of all the challenges of the last year. Congratulations to Bala and the organising committee, and especially congratulations to all those who will shortly be receiving awards in this session. And with that, I'll hand back to Greg. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simon. And yes, you touched on some really important themes that have been the focus of some discussion over the last 3 days. Now, the next task is my easiest of the night, and that is to introduce Bala. He's a man who needs no introduction, right? So over to you, Bala.
Yeah, good evening and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for all of your support. Without your support, I don't think that we can reach this level. Several people over time supported me to bring to this level. So I would like to thank everyone. And also, most importantly, the way the Simon has given, the concluding remarks. So so he touched upon corporate social responsibility, COVID, and gender diversity. So we have several papers over the last 3 days, PhD student as well as academic staffs focused on those things, work on that one. So that's an important things. So I just wanted to highlight few things about these. One of the important aspects is lateral cultural qualities. We care, we connect, we are innovative, and we are accountable. So those are the 4 fundamental principles built on our lateral cultural qualities. So we have, we have started this conference in 2010. When I approached Robert Faff to talk about whether we can run an industry workshop, he says that's not possible. There's no point. Then I say that we can do one-day conference. He says that why you wanted to do it. Then I went and talked to my PhD thesis supervisor, Michael Theobald. He says that, can you come? I said, okay, I can come, but if it is a big industry workshop, I don't want to come. Then he said that, okay, if you're running a conference one day, then started off, then I approached number of people across Australia and New Zealand, Professor Tony Van Zijl, Professor Kevin Davies, Professor Ali Reza Befai, Professor Janice Ho. They all say that, okay, we are just initiating. I don't know how this is going to be successful. So I wanted to invite you as a keynote speaker for this conference. But I don't think that we are going to provide any other support except 2-night accommodation. No travel, nothing. So they all came and supported. Then we had actually 100 academics presented the papers at the conference. So when we run that conferences, then at the dinner, when I was thanking that, I saw that without your support, we can't run this conference. So I asked them to come forward and work with us. So that time, 4 universities joined with us. One of them is Victoria University of Wellington. They are still joined with us continuously, all 11 years. So that's the way this conference started, first 2 years. Then when the second year, because we initiated, so we wanted to see that Latrobe's benefit a little bit the establishment. So we run these conferences first 3 years. Third year, we introduced PhD Symposium. That time we had 30 PhD students present their paper. So that's the way it's built, and it comes because of due to the financial crisis, we developed that conference. Then we build up from there. Then we thought about that, okay, so there are the academics, PhD students are presenting papers from developing countries. Why we can't develop a special issue for publishing journals and guiding people for their first A papers, guiding them. So that's the way we associated with Pacific Basin Journal. That time the founding editor, that is, so we approached the founding editor at that time, so then he wholeheartedly supported. So then the journal associated with us. Then we move these conferences, we need to get the wide acceptance. How do we bring people from UNSW to present a paper? Western Australia to present a paper? How do we get the acceptance for this conference wider in Australia and New Zealand, rather than just stick with these the other universities? We started building and moving these conferences across Australia and New Zealand. So it's hosted various places: Wellington, Perth, Brisbane, Sydney. So we rotated these universities. So various universities now and then that came. So then we are supposed to organize this conference in 2020. We have done everything. The participant has paid all the registration fees. Then the COVID, we canceled the conference. So then we thought about, okay, 2021. Then because the initial agreement with Macquarie and Victoria University of Wellington and Monash Monash hosts 2021. Victoria University of Wellington hosts 2022. Macquarie hosts the conference in 2023. Because of the COVID, we canceled. Then I talked to the respective universities, and then we wanted to rerun. We wanted to host this 2021. So I was not sure how we are going to host this in this the crisis, COVID crisis. So we thought, okay, so November, December, I was not sure. So few universities, actually, the Macquarie University and the Monash University come back and say that Victoria University of Wellington, they said, we will support you, just you go ahead, what you get. So then we initiated in January, just send the call for papers. And then we thought that, but it's a free registration. It's only 100 papers I was expecting, at the normal average, 130 papers we get, 100 academics and 30 PhD students present the papers. Then all of a sudden we received 350 papers. I don't know how we are going to manage it. So then how we are going to host, because I don't want to go and say that only the papers, the best papers to accept for the conferences. I am a strong believer for thinking that you give opportunity for everyone to learn. So people from India, people from China, people from Malaysia, people from Taiwan, I wanted to give them opportunity to learn. So then only I approach Deakin University and RMIT University, these much of papers, will you support? Will you sponsor a prize? Will you host 2 parallel sessions? So Deakin and the RMIT come back and they just get involved and supported that. Then University of South Australia extended. Auckland University technically extended. So that's why we build everything. Then I went and approached the Chartered Financial Society. They say that we are looking forward for future collaboration. So Chartered Financial Association helped me to build these 2 industry sessions. That is Maria's industry keynote and the other one actually Future of Super Fund. Then I have the strong associate with our conference, Dr. Nhan Turnbull. So I asked him, how do we do something on essay? I was asking him. So he was suggesting few of the topics. Then he said that, okay, I can bring those, the very strong panel. And which as he promised, he provided and established that panel. That's what we were looking at. December and January, I was talking to him number of times, telephone. I got his telephone number too. So I always talk. So he helped me to establish that panel. So that's the way that's built, and everyone come back. Then when I was working that, particularly the Monash University and the Deakin University and the RMIT, those 3 universities see that, the Hugh, he my co-researcher. I worked with him a lot. Banita, I know her very well when I was at Monash. Sagarika, I'm working on various culture-related projects, work-related culture, respectful culture, innovative culture. We are looking at few other projects. I think actually 5 of my culture papers presented in this conference, my co-authors, they all come and wholeheartedly support. So in between, there are, there are ups and downs. Sometimes I had a sleepless night too. There are tensions. There may be issues comes. So when issues come, then I don't have anything to do. I just call Terry, this is an issue, what do I do? So he consoled me and he guided me what I need to do and how I resolve it. So we resolved and we sort things out. So I just wanted to see my path. And also I thought that I am a strong believer of guiding the early career researchers or the PhD student or publish for the first papers. So whatever the suggestion I prepare for special issues, some ideas, I go and share with Robert, I share with Tom Smith, they always come and support it. So that's why we have a bit of slightly innovative way of approaching the special issue for the accounting and finance and the Pacific Basin finance. So those things all come. Then I thought that when I see that, the Professor Philip Brown, he got his first paper on, the earnings, well cited, and he got the Australian Order of Australia too. So he has a tremendous career, and so I thought that in 2000, 12, we should recognize his achievement. So that's the way we start. We first lifetime achievement award we have given to Professor Philip Brown for his contribution for that accounting paper, Ball and Brown paper. Everyone knows the Ball and Brown paper. So then we thought that, okay, when from that year, 2012, then we let rope run again 2018, that conference. So we thought that anyone in Australia or New Zealand who has an outstanding contribution in terms of research or in terms of academia, not everyone gets an opportunity to publish 10 tier 1 journal. Not everyone, the contribution to the finance or accounting not come from only research. It's come from various ways, supervising PhD student, getting grant, mentoring, and a significant career. So that's why we initiated this time. Then the 2018, when we run the conferences, we have given 2 lifetime achievement award for auditing and governance as well as finance. In the one principle we looked at it, whoever is going to get that lifetime achievement award, they should have at least 1 degree from Australia or New Zealand. So maybe in 10 years or 20 years time, if I get say 10 journal of finance, I'm not qualified, for example. So they should have a degree, 1 degree in Australia, and then they should have a strong contribution in research, theoretical and the empirical research. So we provide those awards. But then the other aspect we introduced this time, academia, all round, meaning if it is a finance profession, the research, supervision. So that's the way we develop. So when we develop all these ideas and wholeheartedly everyone supported, whenever I ask people that come back and supporting, so that's why I was a bit emotional. Apologies for that one. So another thing what I wanted to tell is when I have developed all these ideas and developing it, Vice Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Pro Vice Chancellor wholeheartedly supported me. So that's very important things I wanted to mention that. And then I can't say anything without mentioning Erica and Mo and Adam Horn, because you have got the very colorful brochure. I never thought that we will get it. So I told him, then he just started developing it. Every half an hour, he just updating and updating. And I don't know how many of you know that Erica, are you there? You say, share your face.
I'm here, Bala.
Come on,
thank you.
Show your face. I wanted to special. She's
thank you.
To have a baby in a week's time. Sorry, I just saying, we're going to have a baby in a week's time. She just here, Latrobe. Today is Latrobe University holiday, right? It's just a holiday. She is here with me, just supporting Erica, and then more, you all. So they wholeheartedly supported this conference. And most importantly, I also wanted to single out another person, that is Benita. When I was struggling it, Benita come back and say that why you're managing everything. So give me something I manage it. So she took over. Coordination, everything about this PhD symposium, allocating discussions, everything. So in this academic area, once I joined Latrobe, when I started running these conferences, I met so many amazing people, which I can't just, I don't want to, I need to, there are so many people I singled out and mentioned, but I wanted to stop because I think Greg told me, Bala, don't go over more than 10 minutes because we need to finish at 8:30. So I stopped there. Thanks again. So I pass it on to Greg. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bala. And it's nice to get that history and put the conference in a historical perspective on what you and your colleagues have achieved over the last 11 years. It's quite remarkable. So without further ado, we're going to move now on to the presentation of a number of Lifetime Achievement Awards, as Bala alluded to, which has become a bit of a tradition of these conferences. And we're very fortunate in having some illustrious presenters to present these awards to our illustrious colleagues. So the first I would like to call on Adjunct Professor Phil Dolan. Phil is an adjunct professor here at La Trobe University. He's had a long and distinguished career both across the finance industry as well as the higher education sector. He's been the immediate past former Pro-Vice Chancellor of the college that this Department of Economics, Finance and Marketing is part of. He's also been the Dean of the Business School at UWA, Professor and Director of the Applied Finance Centre at Macquarie University, and Head of the Investment Research Department within Macquarie Bank. So without further ado, Phil, over to you.
Thank you, Greg, and thanks for the opportunity to do this. It's my pleasure this evening to do the awards for two very fine colleagues, Tom Smith and Peter Swan. I imagine that one of the reasons I was chosen for this is that I know them both personally. So if I insert some personal detail of how I actually know them, I trust you'll bear with me. And in the interest of efficiency as well, and I'm sure both of them would appreciate this, there are some comments that I'd like to make about the two of them that apply to both of them. And so in the interests of efficiency, I'll make those comments right up front because they apply to both of these gentlemen. And then I'll go talk about each of them individually. And I think on the run sheet, Tom will be the first one. But let me just start by saying that it's a pleasure to do this. They're two fine scholars. They have excellent track records themselves as researchers. You would have seen that in the bios that came out. They have regularly published in top journals around the world, and each of them have undertaken very innovative research. But I think, and this is true of both of them, of course, as important as that is that they have produced decades of terrific outcomes for their colleagues, co-authors that they've worked with, students that they've supervised, and in that sense, they've leveraged their own talent and commitment to the benefit of finance academic research in Australia, and therefore had a huge impact on both the theory and practice in Australia, but obviously more broadly, given that they've published in international journals. So let me now say some specific remarks on for each of them, beginning with Tom. I can actually remember to the day when I first met Tom, and the reason for that was I had just arrived at Stanford University to enter the doctoral program, and one of the things they do for you there is they give you a buddy from someone from your own country, ideally, who can kind of, a more advanced student in the program, who can kind of keep an eye on you, show you the ropes, and look after you. And I've got to say, in my case, I was incredibly fortunate that person was Tom. He picked me up at the airport the day I arrived. Because my plane was late, he hung around first of all when the plane was late, but then because of the plane being late, when we got back to the university, the student housing I was going to live in was closed for the evening, so he took me back to his house, put me up for the night, gave me dinner and so on. The reason I mention that is I think it's emblematic of just what a generous person Tom is, both in terms of his academic work, but also more broadly than that. The number of people I know whose careers have been launched by Tom, academic careers. He's had dozens of very good doctoral students over the years who have gone on to their own very successful careers, and in fact are now into the next generation. Some of their students are now having established for themselves excellent careers, research careers as well. Tom is currently doing a lot of excellent leading edge research in issues to do with environmental finance, which is an area that I think is going to grow in future. And the other thing I would mention about Tom as well, and I know the award is specifically to do with research, but this I think is another way in which his own expertise has been leveraged, is that he's been a terrific teacher over the years. He's brought a similar standard to Australian doctoral training that you would see in the very best schools in the US. And Tom, of course, has both studied and taught at some of the best schools in the US. And I think that, again, the impact of that on the sector has been enormous because through those courses, and I've had faculty members who are colleagues of mine that I've sent off to do Tom's courses, I think that also reflects the level of dedication that he's brought to establishing and taking forward finance research in Australia. So it's very much a pleasure to have Tom put forward this evening for this award. And I think we now give him a chance to respond. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yes, Tom.
Well, thank you very much for those wonderful words, Phil. And I do remember that day that you arrived at Stanford and picking up the airport. I also remember British Commonwealth shopping, where I would take you and your wife, Carol, and Ruth Friedman, and anyone else that wanted to come shopping in my big 1973 Grand Prix. And we'd go off to the shopping centres and have an ice cream afterwards. I'm only going to be brief. I really want to stress how important Bala is to academia in Australia. He's made enormous contributions, and not the least of is his passion and enthusiasm for this conference, which has helped to launch many ECRs, PhD students, and giving researchers a great opportunity to share innovative ideas. I'm very pleased that Phil mentioned the research training. That is my vocation. My vocation is teaching people how to do research, and I'm very grateful for this award, and I dedicate it to my PhD students. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Tom, and congratulations. I think in the deaf community, this is a clap. So people, it's much better visually on a Zoom. Phil, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. And it's now a pleasure to also speak about Peter. And in fact, the comments I made about Tom apply just as much in Peter's case. In fact, it's in some sense thanks to Peter that I even know Tom. I can also remember when I first met Peter Swan. It was at the AGSM. I had just finished my MBA program and undertook a doctoral level economics course that Peter was teaching in 1986. And I can also remember that very clearly because as a result of doing that course, I decided to go on with my doctoral studies and applied to Stanford. And Peter was one of my referees when I applied to Stanford. And I guess he must have said all the right things because I got in. And it was because of going to Stanford that I then met Tom. And the course that I undertook with Peter gave me excellent preparation. In fact, I was effectively given credit for having done that course when I got to Stanford because they regarded the level of instruction that I'd got as being the equivalent of what they offered at the Stanford Business School. Again, people will have seen from Peter's bio that he has a very long and distinguished career in research in Australia. Covering a wide range of economics and finance. His interests more recently have been to do with institutional investing, the role of boards, understanding market efficiency and structure. And all these are areas where he's brought a combination of both academic rigour but also relevance to the work that he does. And it's interesting to note that in some cases his work has had policy recommendations that have made the working of the Australian financial system better as a result of that. I think Australia is fortunate, actually, to have an academic of the calibre of Peter Swan here. A lot of people of his calibre would have gone overseas and perhaps not come back. And I certainly have been very fortunate to have known him over the years. And I think, again, students that he's worked with, colleagues that he's co-authored with, would all give testimony to just what a terrific colleague he's been and to what an impact he's had. And so it's also a pleasure to put him forward for this award this evening as well.
Peter.
Well, thanks very much for those wonderful remarks. What you might not know is that I initiated Tom's move to AGSM. So I set out to recruit him, but I failed the first time around, but he got sufficiently interested so that he did actually come a couple of years later. So that was, I thought, a great achievement and a great benefit to AGSM. So it's interesting that we're so linked in this way. In fact, AGSM in general has played a very important role, I think, in bringing very distinguished researchers. Ray Ball, Phil Brown was the founding dean, and so on and so forth. So it's helped to initiate the careers of many scholars, and we've just got some examples tonight of its great success. So thank you for those remarks, and thanks to Bella for doing a marvelous job. I have presented at his some of his conferences and enjoyed that very much. But he's going from strength to strength and initiating new ideas all the time, which is very good to see. So I'm very happy about that. I'm sure we'll have many more great ideas to be implemented. And the other thing that was mentioned is that I've always tried to combine theory with policy, whether it be on tax integration, on franking credits and things of that sort, or whether it be on tax reform generally, getting rid of stamp duty, for example, on helping to keep ASX in Australia by leading the campaign against the Singapore takeover of the ASX. Pointing out that the government's plans to reduce corporate tax were very expensive to tax revenue, but of no benefit to investment, because franking credits ensures that no Australian pays corporate tax, and that since Australians can borrow basically as much as they like overseas at rates which don't reflect corporate tax, the marginal investor in Australia are Australians, and that's why we have a very low cost of capital, thanks to tax imputation and franking credits. So these are many areas which I think are very important for the development of the Australian economy, like financial deregulation, the work of the Campbell Committee and so on, have completely transformed the environment for academics in Australia. So when I started my career, there were no academics and no graduates employed in the banking system. It was just a cartel run by the Reserve Bank. But now we've moved into a modern era. We've floated the dollar. Thousands of economists and financial students now work in the banking system and in enterprises around Australia. So these are all very recent developments, remarkably recent developments, but they've completely transformed Australia, which I'm very pleased to see. So thanks, Bella, for all you've done and for this award, and thanks very much.
Congratulations, Peter. And thank you, Phil, for your presentation and introduction of those two distinguished academics. I'd like to next call on Professor Christine Brown, who is Professor and Head of Department of the Banking and Finance at Monash University. Prior to joining Monash in 2010, Christine held several research positions at the University of Melbourne and visiting positions at the University of Strathclyde, Queen's University, and in Belfast, and also at Manchester University. Christine has also served on the editorial board of 3 international journals, including the Global Finance Journal. So Christine, would you like to introduce our next 2 distinguished achievers?
Thank you, Greg. Well, it's my honour to actually talk about, I think I'm a bit fuzzy there, but I probably look better fuzzy. Lifetime Awards means that people have been around a long time, and I have too. I'm going to do what Phil did and talk about Professor Robert Faff and Professor Terry Walter together to begin with. So when we think about Lifetime Awards, as I said, the people that receive lifetime awards have obviously achieved a lot, not just because they've been around a long time, but there have to be hallmarks of the contribution that they've made to the discipline. And I think one of the themes that was coming out, that has already been coming out, is the generosity of spirit that people who are the recipients of such awards have. And if I think about both Terry and Robert, and as Tom said, having a vocation to training PhD students, I'm not sure whether Rob and Terry will say they've got a vocation to training PhD students, but they both have now got PhD students who are professors in the discipline. So they are now at the next level in terms of where their PhD graduates are working and achieving. When I think about both Rob and Terry, their generosity of spirit to their PhD students, and I'm going to actually give a few testimonials of the PhD students for Rob, the generosity to those students, to early career researchers, to their colleagues particularly, and to their co-authors, stands out in terms of their CVs and what people and their colleagues will say about each of them. So when I think about the enormous contribution, both in terms of the publications of both Terry and Rob across a great diversity of topics in finance and accounting, there seems to be no limit to the topics that each of them have mastered and written about and published in top-tier journals. But I think for both Terry and Rob, I would say that they've made a really significant contribution to finance academia in Australia. Their significant contribution to both the theory of finance, but also the application in terms of industry links. So let me turn to Professor Terry Walter in terms of this Lifetime Achievement Award. When I went and looked up some of Terry's background, I always found Terry a little bit scary. I joined finance academia in 1990, so I haven't been around quite as long. When I look back on his CV, I think he was actually a practicing academic, if I can say that, back in 1973. So he has been around for 50 years, and that deserves a Lifetime Achievement Award, just to stick around that long and all the things that we as academics do. And the people I speak to say that he has done all of it really well. His teaching, his research, his contribution to academia in terms of the engagement. And if we look at what he has done, he was instrumental in the setting up of CIFA. He's managed to secure many ARC grants as well as industry grants. He has supervised numerous students through to completion. He was the Chief Research Officer at Circa and instrumental in the early stages of Circa. He set up the Circa Young Researcher Award. So when you think back on Terry's career, he was a really early contributor, not just because he was around in 1973 doing all of this. So he's had a significant influence on the trajectory and the path that finance research in Australia has taken. And he's shown the way, he's led the way for many early researchers. Early day researchers, because if you think back to the 70s, finance really didn't exist as a discipline in many universities back then. So he really was an early contributor, and he paved the way for a number of academics in the discipline area today. Besides all that, he's made really significant contributions to the research in applied empirical research that he does. He does testing of finance theory relating to a number of subdisciplines in finance. And his research has focused on resolving anomalies. And one of his recent areas that he's researching on is superannuation and the principles for the design of efficient managerial remuneration systems. And we can all relate to that because that's been at the core of many of the, financial scandals that have been around in the last couple of decades. So I think Terry has mentored, he's led the way by example, and I would say this of both Terry and Rob, that they don't just preach, they do what they preach, and they lead the way through example. So besides all of that, Terry, I'm not scared of him anymore. I think he's a genuine all-round good bloke and very, very deserving of this Lifetime Achievement Award. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. Terry, would you like to respond?
Yeah, look, I'm glad that as I've matured, I've become slightly less scary, Christine. So that's very good. Look, thank you very, very much for those very, very kind words. I'm both very proud and very humbled to be the recipient of this award. I thought I'd reflect just very briefly on what's changed over the last nearly 50 years. A lot of things have changed. Some of them undoubtedly have changed for the better, but some have got worse. Let me highlight three things that I think have become much better about our roles in universities. We now have much better technology, much better computing power, and that means that we can do our research much more efficiently. The databases that we can access have improved tremendously, also enabling a huge increase in the efficiency of the research work that we can do. And a third broad trend that I think has been a real improvement in Australian universities over this last 50 years is that our audience, and indeed our teaching fraternity, has become much more multicultural. Those are all things that I think are changes that are very, very much for the better. Some things have got worse. When I first started in university, students used to go to class, and it seems that they don't anymore. They'd rather rely on technology. Universities were much better funded when I first started. I started just after Gough Whitlam removed university fees and gave substantial increases to the funding of Australian universities. And I think it's become, well, it's very obvious that funding is no longer as generous from the federal government as it once was. The other thing that I think has changed dramatically is the culture. Unfortunately, I think universities have become far less collegial and far more commercial. Now, not everyone will agree with what I'm about to say, but I think for me, balance in life is very important. I had a stern warning from my periodontist several years ago telling me that I wasn't brushing my teeth very well and that I needed to increase my, my act. And I said to the periodontist, there's more to life than brushing your teeth. And he thought that was pretty funny, so he wrote that down. And the next time I turned up, it was written up on the roof of his surgery. I think there is more to life than writing A-star publications. I think writing A-star publications is important, but there are other aspects of life that are, I think, far more important. And so for me, balance is very important. When I reflect over what I think has been a very fortunate and very successful career, the thing that stands out for me most strikingly is it's the quality of the friendships that I've developed over that period of time, those interpersonal relationships that have made universities such an endearing place for me to work. And many of those friends are in fact attending this conference. Could I just say thank you very much for those friendships. Thank you very much for those very kind words. I am both humbled and honoured to be the recipient of this award.
Congratulations, and thank you, Terry. Back to you, Christine.
Well, now I shall turn to Professor Robert Faff, who I can see smiling up there at me. Rob doesn't go back as far as Terry, so Rob was a tutor at ANU in 1982, if I've got that right. So it's almost 40 years. So it's a 40-year career, and it's a lifetime of giving. I don't think Rob really needs terribly much for me to talk about him to let you know what he's done, because I think he's one of the he's made a staggering contribution to finance academia, and I noticed that Greg's comments and Bala's comments it's not just about research. It's about when I sit in the professorial promotion panel, it's about well-roundedness. And I'm not saying that you're well-rounded, but you have got a very well-rounded contribution to the discipline area over 40 years, Rob. You've supervised umpteen, I think more than 50 PhD students, or around 50. And when I talk to some of the PhD students, the words that come out, I'm going to quote a couple, but the words that come out are generosity, humble. He's done so much for me and for others, and a great scholar with a great heart was one of the quotes. So I think that if teaching the PhD students and training the next generation of academics in our discipline area, you've made a massive contribution. And I think that that alone would justify the Lifetime Achievement Award that you're about to receive. But I think that's a small part of what you've actually done for finance academia. You've ensured that it's going to continue, because you've trained and taught the next generation of scholars, and that's very important. But in terms of the contribution that you've made to research on Australian issues and using Australian data and understanding the Australian financial markets, I think that's a massive contribution too. I know that Terry's spoken about some of the directions that we may have taken in the last, say, decade and a half, that often Australian research is not seen as being as important. But you've held up that flag really well, and you've led by example. I feel like we can sort of claim you a little bit. I'm not the head of the department anymore. I did it for 6 years, and that was enough. But you did spend nearly 20 years at Monash, and you have left a very big legacy at Monash of students that you've supervised, colleagues that you've co-authored with, early career researchers. And so that contribution has been very deep and long lasting, I think. But I think that one of the things that you're going to be really well known for going into the future now is this pitching research that you've been doing for the last several years. I don't know when you started that, I didn't look. But the worldwide penetration of this angle, and the number of publications, books, book chapters, co-authors with other people in terms of other academics trying to lead the way in teaching people how to go about it. It's not just something that you can learn by osmosis. There is actually something that can be done to educate and teach young scholars that there are ways that you can go about it that will make you more successful. And I think for that contribution, again, would by itself would be warrant a Lifetime Achievement Award. So, Robert, I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Bala. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Robert. Thank you,
the PhD students that I spoke to also said that Rob would always ask, so what's new? And so what? When you've presented, you know, when they're presenting their ideas, so what? And a couple of the people that I spoke to have said that those, that learning that they did with you as their mentor and their supervisor has stuck with them, and that they tend to model their own supervision practices on the supervision that you gave them. And I think that that's a massive accolade for you. So I'm going to stop now. Rob, you're well deserving of this, and in presenting it, I take off my you know, hat to you that for what you've done over these past 40 years.
Rob.
Thank you very much, Christine. They're very kind words. You know, we don't live our lives or do our work for awards, and I know I'd be speaking on behalf of the others, and I'm really very pleased to be given this award and to have it in the context of the other awardees as well. If I were asked what, you know, by an up-and-coming academic, how should I sort of, what's the strategy for how I develop my career? I would never say to them, do what I've done. It would just be the dumbest thing. And so it's not, and I don't have any regrets about what I've done, and I've always tried to, while staying in the mainstream a lot, I've tried and I continue and I'm striving to go where others don't go. And you know, words that ring in my ear from Tom Smith, great mentor, is, you know, risk making mistakes. Make the 99 mistakes a day. Who cares? Laugh it off. If you don't make mistakes, you're not going to advance, and you don't go out there trying to make mistakes. You've just got to do what you think is right. And that's where I've been in my career now for a little while, and I am very energized. And if you think I've got a lot in me, and you haven't seen anything yet, I haven't finished, and I've got a big agenda going forward. So let me weave in a couple of comments. So Bala, congratulations. I've been a mentor of Bala's since the time he walked into my office when I came back to Monash in 2002, and Bala said, I want to do research, and then sort of chatted to me, and at the time I wasn't quite sure who the heck I was talking to. And you know, it's been a great journey, an interesting journey. Bala is a very challenging person to mentor. You give him advice and he ignores it, but I don't think he does it just to sort of be disobedient or anything. He will gather other advice, and he asked me about starting this conference, and I said don't do it. But anyway, he did it, and thank goodness he didn't take my advice. I first knew of Peter Swan as an undergraduate at ANU. I feel incredibly blessed to have lived, ANU was the closest university to me. I grew up in country New South Wales, a town of 1,000 people. And so Canberra was the place to go. Peter Swan taught me third year microeconomics, I believe. And, it wasn't just Peter, but I mean, I'm really proud of that training I had in an Australian setting at an undergraduate level. The quality of the training we had in economics, I'm obviously biased, but it was just superb. So I sort of forever am in debt to Peter and his colleagues at the ANU for that economics training, because I think one sad thing maybe of the more recent sort of trend in terms of the training of finance and accounting is that there has been a watering down of economics, and you could get into a debate about that, but I just feel so enriched by that economics training. Now, I did an honours degree at ANU, and it was in takeovers, and so it was near, it wasn't the best thesis ever done. I couldn't find any data, but that's okay. And near the end of writing that up, there's a paper by Terry Walter that sort of somehow, I don't know how I got it, because it wasn't like you could, I must have, yeah. Anyhow, you know, Terry Walter at that early time and going on from there was also a great influence. I mean, I had quite an interest in takeovers at the time, and then I sort of went off and did other things. But I really sort of feel that Terry has been a great leading light, not only for me, but for many in the field. And then I met Tom Smith in about 1994, and I have to sanitize some of this story, because my first recollection of Tom was I hated him. I absolutely hated him. And the reason basically was very selfish, that we both, I'm not going to say which job we applied for, but, you know, there I was with not much to show for myself. And there was Tom Smith coming back to Australia with, you know, all these T1 journals, and it must have just been a joke in the selection committee, because it couldn't have been more stark. And so Tom easily won that. He should have won that, and I hated him at the time. But it wasn't much after that I realised that we were incredibly blessed to have someone like him come back to Australia, and we've heard what great deeds he's done. And you know, he's a very generous spirit, and he's been a great role model and mentor for me. That's the past. The present is like, you know, this conference and stuff we do and where we're at. I've got a big agenda going forward, and quite a number of you have already had communication from me in the last few weeks around what I'm really going to dedicate myself to until I just run out of puff, and this is responsible science. And it sort of dovetails out of the pitching framework, but it has an existence in its own right. And if you're at all interested, I want you to join this movement. I have an international group already of about 180. I got an email just before we started tonight from an academic who I've never met, Bratislava in Slovakia. This person, as I recall, was a recommendation to me, and I think I'm pretty sure it was a she, wants to join the network. That's country number 61. So we have representation from 61 countries. This is truly international, and this is the basis of doing something very, very different, very, very exciting. Only a crazy person like me would want to try this. It could spectacularly fail, but I don't think it's going to do that. It's about responsible science. It's about thinking of the way in which we need to view research in the 21st century. The three dimensions are, we want to deliver, as we always have and will continue to need to deliver research that is reliable, is credible, that gives us knowledge about how the world works. We have to think more in the second dimension about choosing topics that have relevance and use outside academia. This doesn't mean we all have to do this and we have to do this all the time, but we do, I believe, need to focus our mind on this relevance aspect. And what this has done is to mobilise, in my mind, the absolute incredible role and key role of industry. And we know there's growing pressure on us to be more and more connected with industry. So going on to the side of what I've been doing in developing the academic network, I've been starting to build as best I can, and some of you would sort of wonder, well, what am I able to do? Well, watch this space. Let's see what I can do. There's one or two in the audience on the industry side that know that I've been reaching out, and I've already got around about 25 people that are going to give that industry relevance. And the third arm of this is independence. The third arm of this is independence, And I think that's something that we sort of wave away a bit. And all these three dimensions form an incredible, powerful framework. There's lots of challenges in here. We've got to get ourselves away from the temptation of p-hacking. We've got to get ourselves away from the temptation of harking, hypothesizing after the results are known. There's got to be a fairly fundamental shift. We've got to convince editors to do things that are very, very unusual to them, to publish replications, to publish no results, the papers that don't have results. There's a whole bunch of things out there. Nothing's perfect, but there are ways of trying to do this. And in terms of this international network, linking with industry, bringing this all together, providing the foundation is research training and capacity building. That's the way I want to sell it, but that doesn't mean that seasoned researchers aren't in there as well, because they've got to be mentors and then part of the team. This is the future. This is the future for me. I am not done. I'm not implying that the others aren't done either. There's a big agenda. I want everyone who's sort of interested or wants to be part of this, contact me, and you'll be welcome. It's very inclusive. There is no exclusivity here. Anyone that is interested in research is very welcome. Come the journey and see where it can take us. Thank you very much for the award. This is just the beginning.
Well, congratulations, Rob. And it does sound as if you're starting off on your journey towards your second Lifetime Achievement Award.
Second inning.
Thank you. And thank you, Christine, for introducing each of our distinguished award receivers. I'd like now to introduce Professor Ann Wyatt, Head of the Department of Accounting at Deakin University. Prior to joining Deakin, Anne held several research positions at the University of Queensland, UTS, and the University of Melbourne, and has also served as an associate editor on the Journal of Business, Finance and Accounting. Anne, if you'd like to introduce our next two awardees.
Am I doing next two? I think next one, I think.
Next one, pardon me, yes.
Yes, that's right, yeah. Thank you very much for the introduction, Greg. So I'm introducing Professor Stephen Taylor tonight, and I'm delighted and honoured to be asked to do this. So Stephen has been a fantastic colleague for a long time now, and if I think about particularly the accounting discipline, and think about colleagues around Australia and indeed around the world, I have to say that Stephen is a true scholar. He's been, from the first day I met him, incredibly excited and curious and enthralled by research, and remains that way to this day. So a genuine scholar. So as we know, Stephen has a distinguished academic career with a PhD from UNSW, and now a distinguished professor of accounting at UTS. So he was first appointed chair at the University of Sydney in 1995. And his distinguished career is in every sphere, in his teaching, in his research, as well as serving on really an astonishing number of different roles in regulatory area and policy areas and in industry. So Stephen's teaching, which is important, and it's what we do first and foremost, is we teach the kids, and hopefully we make a difference and send them out into the world. So Stephen's teaching in the accounting-based valuation area and investment and financial reporting has sent out legions of very well-educated students into business, and he's been involved as well in exec ed, expert witness, both in Australia and overseas. So you have to wonder how he managed to sleep along the way with all of these things going on. So he's published in leading journals, in Journal of Accounting and Economics, RAST, CAR, to name a few, and won many, many very large grants. So I'd like to say about Stephen, he has a very large intellectual capacity, and he has generously poured this into his work, shared with students, shared with colleagues over the years, both in Australia and overseas. And Stephen's intellectual interest and curiosity is such that no matter how busy he's been, he has an astonishing command of the literature and has maintained that command right throughout his career, no matter how busy he's been with his multiple roles. So in terms of just some of his service highlights over the years, right now he's a member of the Accounting Standards Board, the Australian Accounting Standards Board, which is a very full role with a huge workload behind it, reading very complicated documents and reflecting on very complicated issues. He is a deputy chair and has been a chair in relation to the Rosetta Institute, and he was instrumental in the two organisations that played a very big role in accounting and finance in Australia that led to that organisation, the Capital Markets Cooperative Research Centre and Circa. So he's an Academy of member of, or fellow of the Academy of Social Sciences in Australia. The inaugural, and this is an important role, the inaugural Australian Business Deans Council Research Scholar, who played a serious and very busy role behind the scenes there, working in the areas of cementing research and so forth behind the scenes. And amongst all of this, an academic advisor to Plato Funds Management, and combined with Associate Dean Research at UTS for a number of years, which culminated in fantastic results in their ERA around that time. So I just want to say that Stephen is a terrific colleague to many of us. He has a very lively sense of humour and is always one with some funny, quirky stories to liven up the day, the seminar or the conference. So it's my absolute pleasure to have the opportunity to present this Lifetime Achievement Award for Stephen's very substantial contribution. So I'll just turn it over to Stephen. And hopefully you've got another one of those quirky anecdotes.
Stephen.
Thanks very much, Anne. First of all, I'd just like to thank Bala for his efforts. As many of you know, I've had a fairly long-term role in running another conference, and only when you've done that do you have any sense of the sort of effort and frustration sometimes that goes into doing that. So thanks, Bala, for all your work, but thank you also to the others that have worked with him over so many years to help build this conference. And thank you, Anne, very much as well for your really kind words. Just a couple of points that I wanted to make. The first one is that I'm sure any recipient of an award like this would agree with me that a big part of having a successful career in academia is having great mentors. And it wouldn't be appropriate if I didn't recognise the fact that I have been incredibly fortunate, unbelievably lucky, and maybe a bit devious. You know, try and work with smart people; it'll make you look really good. But I've been very fortunate that I've had three excellent mentors that I wanted to mention. The first one, and I'm sure many people, even people predominantly in finance, will be familiar, obviously, with a couple of these names. One is Greg Whittrett, who, was a fantastic advisor to me, and as always, given very good advice. The second one is Alan Craswell, who for many years was a professor at the University of Sydney while I was there, and then at the University of Queensland. And the third, and I couldn't be more happy that we shared this platform tonight, the third is Terry Walter, with whom, when I look down my CV, I appear to have more co-authorships with than any other person. So those three people have been fantastic mentors, and I would encourage a lot of the doctoral students and junior faculty to try and develop a good relationship with one or more mentors who can really provide, guidance and help in terms of how you build a career. I just briefly mentioned two others that perhaps not quite on the same level, but who I've been fortunate enough over many years to work on various projects with, and that's one is Philip Brown, and the other was Ian Zimmer. So first thing was to really acknowledge the fact that, like any of these awardees, I wouldn't be sitting here giving this response if it wasn't for having great mentors. The second thing I really wanted to highlight was to encourage people to, always look for interesting research questions. I mean, right now, if you think about the position, that the world is in generally, there's never been a greater need for evidence-informed policy. And yet again and again and again, whether it's in capital markets or, even areas as simple as where they stick up 40-kilometre-an-hour speed zones, for the most part, public policy seems to lack any willingness to engage with the findings of rigorous empirical research. And as academics, that's something that we need to work very hard on doing. But while that's a challenge, it's also a great opportunity, because that's where interesting research questions really come from looking at issues in the world today. Now, it's probably inevitable that at some point, right now, somewhere in the world, someone is working on writing up a paper that shows that red-headed CEOs pay higher audit fees. I mean, this goes back to, I think it was Robert Faff's point, about trying to write a hypothesis after we've found a result. Really want to discourage people from that sort of thing, and instead look at what the challenging questions are. So, for example, if you were doing research in the area of auditing, just look at some of the policy recommendations that are out there at the moment and ask yourself the question, is there ways in which my research could contribute to a more informed debate around whether or not some of these proposals are really well-founded, or in fact just based on anecdotes and people's prejudices? That's a very, very important role that we have as academics in accounting and finance. And effectively, I'm repeating the words of several other recipients this evening. The other point, again, which I guess is in part repeating, is the importance of research training. Apart from identifying an interesting research question, the other challenge that faces us is executing the research in a suitably rigorous manner. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we throw every econometric technique possibly at something. Accounting researchers, and I think finance researchers at times too, are very fond of grabbing hold of the latest discovery of some econometric technique that somebody introduces, and at that point nobody else has heard of. And then typically what happens is somebody else comes along and demonstrates that for the most part the technique is being applied wrongly, or it's being applied in a way that that really might in fact create biases that the researchers themselves think that the technique is overcoming. Classic example is this obsession with fixed effects in regressions. That's a very good example of something that is as likely to induce a result as in fact control for things that people are trying to control for. So it's important that while we get training in being able to execute our research rigorously, that we also recognise the importance of understanding the underlying technology that we're using. And so, a shout out to Robert Faff's point, particularly about the significance of research training. And I'll also mention that, I think I sat in the same PhD economics class with Peter Swan as Phil Dolan did. And, what you learn from courses like that really can't be replicated. I was fortunate to do a course on accounting and the theory of the firm with Ray Ball. And when I think about the number of research projects that I've worked on, we're sitting somewhere under that stuff is what I learned in that course. It's just tremendously important. And so, you know, one challenge that we have is doing everything we can to make sure that we maintain a level of training for doctoral students that doesn't just equip them to do research in a technical manner, but also helps them to really be able to identify what interesting research problems are. Because if that's what we work on, then we address part of what Robert was talking about, and that is research that really has impact, that informs public debate and actually means that decisions that are made in the public domain are much more likely to be made in a way that have firm foundations. So thanks again to all of the organisers of the conference. It's a privilege to receive this award at the same time as the other recipients. And all I can say again is thank you very much.
Congratulations, Stephen. Terrific. And thank you, Anne, for introducing Stephen and his achievements to us. I'd like now to call on Adjunct Professor Paul Mater, who, like Phil, has had a very successful career straddling both industry and higher education. Paul's an immediate former head of the La Trobe Business School and Professor of Accounting and Corporate Governance at La Trobe, prior to which he was an Associate Dean Research Degrees in the Faculty of Business and Economics at Monash University. Prior to becoming an academic, Paul was a senior manager and partner with the Melbourne, Monrovia and London offices of PricewaterhouseCoopers. So Paul, would you like to introduce our next awardee, please?
Thanks, Greg. So firstly, before I introduce the next awardee, I just want to congratulate all the award recipients today. It's an amazing array of very distinguished academics. At the expense of singling someone out, I'm delighted for Robert Faff, who's a very old and valued colleague of mine. That didn't sound right. What I should have probably said was I met Rob on my first day as an academic at Monash University a long while ago, and he's been a very supportive and great colleague since. But well done to all of you. Okay, it's a great privilege for me to introduce Professor Tony van Zijl, and note the pronunciation. I did some research at my local rugby club, but there's lots of South Africans and of Dutch heritage, who is currently a Professor of Accounting and Financial Management and Director of the Research Centre at Victoria University in Wellington. Tony has made a significant contribution to accounting academia through his publishing and research, as many academics do, obviously. And he's published over 100 academic and professional journal papers, supervised over 25 PhD students, and significantly contributed quite a bit to the accounting profession, which I'll talk to in a minute. And I think that's pretty important in terms of the role I think we as a professoriate have to play, or all academics have to play, in engaging with the profession and industry. Tony is a former chair of the Financial Reporting Standards Board, was a foundation member of the Accounting Standards Review Board, and he's currently a member of the External Reporting Advisory Panel to the External Reporting Board. He's a past member of the Valuation and Property Standards Board, the Property Institute of New Zealand. He has served on government working parties on securities law reform, capital charging for education institutions, and value-based reporting. His research interests focused on information in capital markets, and he regularly provides consulting advice, litigation support on financial reporting and cost of capital and related matters. He's given expert evidence of these matters in High Court proceedings, Commerce Commission hearings, arbitrations, and he's a lay member of the High Court of New Zealand. Predictably, given this sort of distinguished and very impactful career, Tony has been recognised for his contributions over the years. In 2004, he was awarded a life membership of the Accounting and Finance Association of Australia New Zealand, AFANS. In 2005, he received the AFAN's Outstanding Contribution to Accounting and Finance, the Practice Award. And in 2011, he was awarded a Victoria University Research Excellence Award. 2012, he was awarded the Outstanding Service to the Accounting Profession by the New Zealand Institute of Chartered Accountants at the time, which is now CANS. And in 2019, he was awarded life membership of CANS, and that's not something that's dished out lightly. Besides all that, I've known Tony for quite a few years, largely through this conference, actually, because he's been very supportive, and Victoria University of Wellington, as Bala indicated, was a foundation partner and has hosted the conference several times, I think, at Wellington. And anyone and everyone who knows him will say what a terrific colleague he is and what an all-round nice bloke he is. I think that's important too. Given all this, I think it's extremely fitting that Tony is being presented a Lifetime Achievement Award for his contribution to accounting academia in New Zealand at this FMCG conference. So congratulations, Tony. This is richly deserved.
Thank you. Tony.
Well, thank you, Paul. And thanks to the conference for this award. Before joining academia, I had 3 different jobs and over a period of some 15 years. But I was beginning to regard work as a bit of a grind, and basically my career wasn't going anywhere. Towards the end of those years, I, despite having degrees in mathematics and economics, decided that I would fill in my evenings by adding a diploma in accounting. Now, most people wouldn't immediately think of that sort of adventure as a hobby pastime, but nevertheless for me, it was an absolutely brilliant decision, because the diploma led me to receive a job offer of a senior lectureship at Victoria University teaching finance. And all round, academia has just been incredibly good for me. I have been able to do a PhD. I have always had tremendous enjoyment from research, from teaching, supervision, consulting, involvement with the profession in terms of standard setting for financial reporting. And what's more, the consulting work has come along with wonderful regularity, and so that not only have I had enjoyment from my work, but I've also been quite well rewarded financially. On top of all that, I've been able to work in an environment where my colleagues, many of my students, have an intellectual firepower that makes me feel like a midget. And clearly that's, just an incredible privilege. So I think I've been absolutely blessed. On top of that, I can recall in my early years, people saying, young man, join the Navy and see the world. Well, had I followed that advice, then I would have seen far less of the world than in fact I've been able to through being an academic. There's just been amazing opportunities to visit other places, meet with other people. I guess I'll close by just commenting on Bala's contribution to this conference. my deep congratulations and thanks to Bala, A, for founding the conference, B, shepherding it through to greater success with each repeat running of it over the 10 years of its existence. I'm happy to note that Victoria has always been a strong supporter of the conference, and indeed we've twice hosted the conference, and we are due to hold it again the next year or the year after. And I will certainly do my best to ensure that that support remains for the conference. So again, thank you very much indeed for the award. It's amazing to receive an award like that when basically you're just sort of going through life enjoying yourself. Thank you.
Well put, Tony, and congratulations. And thank you, Paul, for the introduction. Now, that's the end of our segment on the awarding of and recognition of these distinguished contributions of our illustrious colleagues. We're now going to digress for a short moment, and I'd like to welcome our next guest speaker, Ms. Ina Zorina, who is the current president of the CFA Society Melbourne, which has kindly sponsored 3 Best Paper Awards for this conference that we'll be awarding or announcing a little bit later. But Ina's going to take a few moments to speak on the work of the Melbourne Society of CFA and Asia Pacific Research Exchange. Ina.
Thank you, Greg, and good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure to speak to you today, and just echoing the words of many of you before me, I want to congratulate La Trobe University and Bala in particular for hosting a very successful conference, and also would like to thank you for having me on this stage. Over the past several months, we have been tested in a new way of life, and we reflected and rethought how we work and engage with one another as professionals, institutional partners, and with the investment industry at large. Our world, as we know, has changed, but the need to connect and to share the knowledge has not. And again, it was really great for me to hear the same message coming from many of you about the desire to connect with the industry and with academia has in fact grown. So these days, the mission of CFA Society Melbourne is as relevant as ever. And our success is highly dependent on our collaboration with partners such as yourself. Our mission is to lead the investment profession by promoting the highest standards of ethics, education, and professional excellence for the ultimate benefit of society. And those last 6 words, for the ultimate benefit of society, are particularly important. We believe that the work of investment professionals benefits the society, and we are not only seeking the best outcomes for the clients, but we're also supporting effective allocation of capital, which ultimately drives economic growth. So we strive to build a better future for the investment management profession and for the society as a whole by providing the best professional education and by ensuring that industry players abide by the highest standards of ethics and professional conduct. As it's been highlighted by the work of the Haynes Royal Commission, the financial services industry in Australia has a lot of work to do, and CFA Society Melbourne is well positioned to lead this change. And with the right partnership in place, we can serve much broader financial community. So the question is, what is the best way to collaborate between, say, CFA community and academia going forward? So from CFA Society Melbourne perspective, we will keep supporting discussion on ethics, on corporate governance, as well as conferences such as this one in the future, connecting academia with industry leaders and prominent speakers. Today, we've been delighted, as Greg mentioned, to sponsor Best Paper Awards across 3 categories. together with CFA Institute Asia Pacific Research Exchange. If you haven't checked their website, I encourage you to visit and in fact bookmark the website, as it is a fantastic resource for APAC investment research. It offers free access to thousands of research articles, and you can also upload your research there to share it with industry professionals, financial institutions, academics, regulators, and the broader CFA community. I'm also extremely excited to share with you that CFA Society Melbourne is hosting the CFA Australia Investment Conference in mid-October this year. And with the theme of this conference, From Purpose to Action, we will explore the issues changing the face of investment management. We'll discuss how to harness opportunities and approach new challenges. We have already secured 2 fantastic keynote speakers, including Howard Marks, and I encourage you to mark October 14 in your calendars. Another great example of our collaboration with universities is a local round of CFA Institute Research Challenge that we host for many years in a row. This annual global competition provides university students with hands-on mentoring and intensive training in financial analysis and professional ethics. It is a great way to get real-world experience as a research analyst and to kickstart a career in investment management. We are looking forward to another successful research challenge this year and hope one day to see a Melbourne team win the global competition. CFA Society Melbourne will keep providing other opportunities for students, academics, and professionals to share research and collaborate locally, regionally, and globally. People and relationships remain at the very core of everything we do, and by joining our forces, we'll all rise and we'll all prosper. I hope you enjoyed the conference, got some new ideas, and connected with new people. So we, from CFA Society Melbourne perspective, again, looking forward to working with you in the future. And wishing you to stay safe, healthy, and keep happy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ina. Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate that. And we do look forward to being able to attend, hopefully face to face, the conference in Melbourne in October.
That's a plan. That's a plan. We certainly want to have it face to face, or at least as a hybrid, to give people various opportunities to join.
Yes.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Okay, well, now we'll move on to the next section of our of the session, and that is the introduction and announcement of the Best Paper Awards for those papers that are presented at this conference. Indeed, there were 260 papers, or more than 260 papers presented over the past 3 days at this conference from 28 countries, as Simon alluded to earlier. All the authors of these papers are to be commended for their very high quality of their research and the quality of their presentations. There are 5 categories that we're going to announce an award for, and we'll also announce a runner-up for each of these categories. The award recipients, unfortunately, we can't call to the stage or the front of the conference centre, as would usually be the practice. And so we will revert to showing some slides, and we'll be presenting their name and their paper on the slides to us tonight. But that will be followed up, of course, with the award itself, which will be sent to these recipients in due course in the next couple of days. Before announcing these awards, I'd like to thank especially the sponsors of these awards, the CFA Society of Melbourne, which, as I mentioned, has sponsored 3 of them, the Asia Pacific Research Exchange, Monash University, and the University of Victoria, Wellington. And a special thanks to the colleagues from 10 universities who collaborated in the organisation of this conference and provided members of the selection committees for each of these award categories. There are other sponsors and other people that our colleague Benita will introduce to you later on when she announces the awards for our PhD papers. But moving to announce to you the first award for best paper in the category of asset pricing, financial markets, market microstructure and financial management. And my colleague Erica is going to share her screen. This is an award that is sponsored by the CFA Society of Melbourne and the Asia Pacific Research Exchange. And the runner-up for this award is Fitos Grigoris and Gil Seagull for their paper on investment and valuation under supply chain and uncertainty. So congratulations, Fitos. And the winner of this category is a paper titled Cross-Asset Tandem Trading and Extraordinary Volatility. The authors are Robert Garrison, Pankaj Jian and Mark Padrick. So a big congratulations to the winners of our first award category. Congratulations to you all. Going to our second award category, which is for banking, behavioural finance, corporate finance and financial economics papers. And again, this award category is sponsored by the CFA Society of Melbourne and Asia Pacific Research Exchange. And the runner-up for this category is a paper, Why Do Institutional Investors Invest Through Intermediaries by Vladimir Vladimirov. So congratulations, Vladimir. And the winner of this award category is Peter Pham, Nick Turner and Jason Zijl for their paper, Rush to Raise, Does Fundraising Pressure Incentivize Strategic Venture Capital Deal Pricing? So on to the third award category, which is the category covering governance, corporate culture and social responsibility papers, again sponsored by the CFA Society of Melbourne and Asia Pacific Research Exchange. And the runner-up in this category is a paper titled The Environmental Consequences of Pay Inequality. And the authors were Joseph Kalamenovitz and Jason Chen. Congratulations to you both. And the winner of the category is a paper titled Shareholder Activism and Gender Bias. And the authors were Jana Fidmurk, Jesus Gorin, and Jiaqui Zhao. So congratulations to the three of you for that wonderful paper. And the next fourth category that I'm happy to announce is the category of emerging markets. The sponsor for this award is Monash University. And the runner-up is a paper titled Corporate Balance Sheets and Sovereign Risk Premia, which was written by Stephen Wu. Congratulations, Stephen. And the winning paper for this category is a paper titled Asymmetric Cross-Side Network Effects on Financial Platforms, Theory and Evidence from Marketplace Lending. And the authors were Lin Kong, Kei Tang, Deng Xiao Zi, and Qi Miao. There was no runner-up in this category. That was the award winner. So congratulations to the three of you. And the final category is for papers in accounting information, disclosure practices, earnings quality, and audit fees. This is an award sponsored by the Victoria University of Wellington. And the runner-up is a paper titled A New Lease on Firm Behaviour. And that was authored by Matteo Binfare, Robert Connolly, Fotis Grigoris, I think for the second time, and Korka Liu. Congratulations to the four of you. And the winner of this category is a paper titled Competitive Threat and Strategic Disclosure During the IPO Quiet Period. And the three authors of this paper, the winning paper, were Mikhail Magnan, Yi Tao Tao Ki, Shafu Zhang. So congratulations to the three of you. So they are the Best Paper Awards for the papers presented in the conference proper. I'd now like to hand over to our colleague, Associate Professor Benita Bisundoyal Binik, who's Deputy Head of School of Finance and Associate Professor at RMIT University, who will announce the winners of the PhD Best Paper Awards. Over to you, Benita.
Thank you very much, Craig, and a very good evening to everyone. So as before we proceed to the awards, I just wanted to start off by congratulating all the award winners, among whom we have a few of my own mentors in my career personally, and also all of us here tonight, because it has been 3 successful days in a virtual conference, and more importantly to Bala for what he has been saying to all of us. We've been supporting him, but doing a virtual conference is extremely hard because we all think it's a click of a button, but it's not just a click of a button or creating a Zoom link or a Teams link. It's massive amount of work which has gone behind the scenes, and I really congratulate Bala for the success of the conference over the 3 days. So it has been a lot of papers that we have seen being discussed, and lots of feedback, lots of discussion over the 3 days. But I have been helping Bala in particular for the PhD Symposium, and the quality of the PhD papers that have been submitted has been extremely of high quality. And we have been talking, we started with Simon highlighting the challenges of 2020, and all of us here across all the different universities, we're faced with the challenges of COVID and the rest of the world. But extremely importantly, the reflection that I have had when looking at those papers is this is where the future of academia is clearly being reflected in the quality of work that has been presented by these PhD candidates, in particular over in the PhD Symposium. So we've had more than 40 papers submitted to the conference, and we had 40 presented actually in this symposium on Thursday. We have 5 award categories, and for which we would announce similar for the conference, the runner-up and the award winner. So of course we don't have a stage, but we will present them on the slides, and in the days to come the awards would be presented to the award winner definitely. But I really want to have special mention to the sponsors of the awards, which has been across the different universities. And I think this is one of the beauty of this conference, which has brought together all these universities to work together and bring this conference sponsoring all these prizes together. So for the PhD awards, we have the University of South Australia, the Auckland University of Technology, Macquarie University, RMIT University, and Deakin University. And very importantly, I wanted to have special mention to all the colleagues across 6 universities who has been collaborating for as the who comprise of the selection committee for all the awards selection. That has been a lot of work selecting the papers. But as the discipline head of finance at RMIT, while I've provided my support to Bala to help in the PhD Symposium, I really want to acknowledge the support I have had of the academics at RMIT, because they have supported me a lot in, the background work behind the scenes of the PhD Symposium. So thank you all for all the support to make sure that we support Bala in the conference and make this successful. So I will now move on to the announcement of the awards for the best paper in the PhD category, the 5 categories. So we'll share this slide, thank you. So we'll have the first category, which is for accounting information, disclosure practices, earnings quality, and audit fees. And this award is actually sponsored by the University of South Australia. And the runner-up is is Nafis Fahad, and for the paper titled The Quest for Clarity in Corporate Announcement, the Competing Effects of Timeliness and Detail. So congratulations, Nafis, for this runner-up award. And the winner in this category is, the best paper goes to Kyle Gu, and the paper is on accounting conservatism and debt contracting, the role of liquidation, value, and information search. So congratulations, Kyle, for the best paper award in this category. So moving on to the next category now, which is on asset pricing, financial markets, market microstructure, and funds management. And the sponsor of this category has been the Auckland University of Technology. And the runner-up for this category is Alexander Montag. And the title of the paper is Bond Implied Risk Announced Macroeconomic Announcement. So congratulations, Alexander, for the high quality paper. And the winner in this category, the award winner is Chukwumwa Dim. And the title of the paper is Understanding Crowd Beliefs About Asset Prices, Evidence from Social Media Text. Congratulations for the best prize paper in this category. So we'll move on now to the next category, which is banking, behavioral finance, corporate finance, and financial economics. The sponsor is Macquarie University. And the runner-up for this category is Farzan Sajja, and the title of the paper is Crime and Governance. So congratulations, Farzan Sajja, for this runner-up award. I was in this session, it was a really good paper. And the winner for this category, who presented in the same session as well, Amit Kumar, and the title of the paper is Know Thyself, Free Credit Report and the Retail Mortgage Market. Congratulations, Amit, for this Best Paper Award. The next category is on governance, corporate culture, social responsibility, and the sponsor is Aramita University. The runner-up in this category is Lama Mesley. The title of the paper is Are CSR Strength and Concerns Two Faces for the Same Coin? Evidence from Stock Mispricing. Congratulations, Lama. And the winner in this category is Jason Chen. I think that's the second award for tonight. And the title of the paper is Creditor Control of Environmental Activity. Congratulations, Jason. The last category is on emerging markets, and the sponsor for this award is Deakin University. And we don't have a runner-up in this category. We'll go straight to the award winner. The best paper is to Pananya Patrakpunpakdi from Monash University, and the paper title is Lending Relationships and Microcredit Interest Rate International in Evidence. Congratulations, Pananya. So I'll congratulate all of the award winners, and I thank all the hosts and the sponsors of the PhD and the other awards that we have, and I'll now hand over to Craig. Thank you.
Thank you, Benita, and congratulations to all the award winners again. And thank you also, Benita, for announcing those awards, and more particularly for the leadership you've shown in assisting Bala in managing and organising and presenting such a wonderful PhD symposium. It's really been a feature of our conference, and you're to be congratulated for all of your work and the success of that particular section. So thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
We're in the home straight, folks. We're up to our thank yous, and it's my honour and privilege on behalf of the executive committee of the conference to thank a number of people who have been just so important to ensuring that we've had such a successful conference over the last 3 days. And the first group of people I'd like to thank, obviously, are the sponsors, without whom we couldn't have a conference like this. Erica, could you put up that? Thank you very much. So I'd like to pass on particular thanks to Auckland University of Technology, the CFA Society of Melbourne, Deakin University, Macquarie University, Monash University, Queensland University of Technology, RMIT University, the University of South Australia, Victoria University of Wellington, and of course, our host, our university, La Trobe University here in Melbourne. So a big thank you to each and every one of those. It's a marvellous example of collaboration in what at times could be quite a competitive sector. But here is a marvellous example of the benefits of collaborating. So thank you, one and all. And thanks, Erica. So I'd also like to pay a particular thanks on behalf of the Executive Committee to our keynote speakers, Professor Reena Agarwal, Professor Tom Taranchordia, Professor Jonathan Karpov, Professor Ron Masuli, Professor Tom Smith, Professor Peter Swan, and Ms. Maria Wilton. Each and every one of those keynote speeches was insightful and provocative and very thoughtful, and really a highlight, as a keynote speech should be, of the success of this particular conference. Thanks also to our many academic and industry panelists, too many, unfortunately, to list and name here individually, but you remember who they were. Bala, you put together some fabulous panels, both academic panels and industry panels, and it's a real credit to you and the organising committee for doing that, and a thanks to all of those panelists who were featured. Thanks to more than 300 academics and PhD candidates who contributed their research and shared their research with us. Without that, we have no conference. That research, they're the real stars, those 300 academics and HDR students who are brave enough and worked hard enough to share their hard work and their thought and their ideas with us over the last 3 days. Thanks to the many colleagues at our sponsor universities and others who contributed to the executive, the program and the PhD symposium committees. A lot of time and hard work was done by those committee members. Thanks also to the colleagues who served on the selection committees for the awards, and for those who reviewed the papers which have been submitted, who moderated the sessions, who acted as official discussants, and the many who shared their insightful thoughts and questions concerning the research and the papers that were being presented. Without that informative questioning and discussion, you don't have a quality conference of the ilk that we've just enjoyed over the last 3 days. And it's a real credit to all of those participants for the insightfulness of their thoughts and questions. A special thanks to Mohammed Hassan and Erica Kalami, who provided the administrative support to Bala and have spent the past 3 days, inside a room, making sure that this ran like clockwork, and it has, and it's a real credit to them. They've been fantastic. And look, I'm going to share something with you. After this conference is over, Erica is going on maternity leave, and we wish her all the very, very best and all the joy in the world with the wonderful time that she's going to have. So congratulations, and best of health to you, and all the very best with that wonderful experience, Erica. And finally, a big thanks, we come back to you, Bala, and thanks also to Simon. We started off with the Vice-Chancellor. We had the support of the Deputy Vice-Chancellor Research, introducing guests. And Simon, thank you for giving up your Friday night and supporting the conference in the way you have. We really appreciate that. And thanks, Bala. Shall we, in the now traditional way, express our thanks to Bala? So I believe that's it. We're 2 minutes over. I do apologise for that. I've taken 2 more minutes of your Friday night than I should have, or that we should have. So thank you very, very much.